Hi, my name's Karen, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
Karen, who is very grateful to be sober. My sobriety date is not brand new, but I might as well be new because I've heard you have to have 40 years before you're not a newcomer anymore, and I don't have 40 years. My sobriety date is July 20th, 2011. And I didn't want to get sober when I got here. I have notes. Just in case I get lost on my thoughts. But the story's the same. It's easy to tell, but I could just get a little lost and take a little too long. But I didn't want to get sober when I got here. I started drinking when I was 13. I grew up in a really nice family. My parents got divorced when I was 2. So maybe, that started me separating from I don't know, whatever. By 13, I was ready to check out. I didn't feel like my mom had remarried to a lovely man. And so I have an older brother, and the 4 of us were our little family, me and my older brother and my mom, who had a brother who would come over for meals, holidays. And now there was something, that was definitely being swept under the rug about my uncle, and something being swept under the rug about my father. They were likely to be alcoholics. But it was never talked about, so I don't really know. And both of them are deceased now. But by the time I was 13, I felt like I didn't fit into my little nuclear family of my brother, my mother, and my stepdad. And I started to check out, and I didn't really know why until 30 years later when I got here and you guys started to tell me. And it made sense, like after a year, right, or a couple years, I started understanding what I was doing from a very early age. Like I didn't want to feel my feelings. And, when I got here, it was May of 2011. And like I said, I didn't want to quit drinking. I knew I was an alcoholic. I wore it like a badge of honor. I mean, I drank at bars. I drank at establishments that have the bartenders wearing alcoholics, serving alcoholics since 1956, right? I'm like, yeah, I fit in here. And it was, drugs are part of my story. And some of the drugs I do, I could do more than you and more than the guys, right? I was a tough girl. And I couldn't drink more beer than anybody because I didn't know how to burp. But that was that was kind of a problem. But I definitely enjoyed drinking from the minute I started it. It was combined with other drugs, like from the very first week, and sex and nicotine, all pretty much right away at a very early age of 13. I look at my friends with 13-year-olds now, and I'm just like, God, that's just crazy that I was that young. And, sneaking out at night. So because my parents were pretty strict, I couldn't get away. For some reason, I followed their direction, and I didn't leave the house when they said I wasn't allowed to. So I left when they didn't know I was leaving the house. In the middle of the night, I'm running around Annandale, Virginia, and finding my friends and getting loaded at age 14. By 15, my best friend's mom read her diary, and everything that was in it was about me, and came over and told my mom everything that was in it. Showed it to my mom, and I went to boarding school after that. So my best friend did, she was on restriction for a weekend, and I went to boarding school. And when I went to boarding school, I did something that you guys taught me about when I got here 30 years later, at this point, 28 years later. I did a geographic, right? I was like, I'm going to shape up. I'm going to clean up my act. And I got to boarding school, and my parents drove out of the parking lot, and my roommate said, hey, do you smoke? And I was like, I do. And, within my first half hour there, I was already unable to say no to my cravings to check out from my feelings, right? So, and that just continued into college, debauchery, and it was fun. At times, it was fun. Except I didn't feel like I fit in. Like at boarding school, I didn't feel like I fit in. But that's what alcohol did for me, is it took away that feeling of not feeling like I fit in. I still didn't really feel like I fit in, but I didn't care anymore. I didn't care that I didn't feel. I would sit in the corner and watch other people, and I would be having fun watching them and not feeling like, oh, I don't fit in. I just So when I got here, I got here in May of 2011, I did start to realize like I had been stagnant for a really long time, and I didn't like that idea of stagnancy. You guys taught me I didn't have control over my drinking, and I didn't really believe that at first. But once I drank again 44 days later. I finally established a sobriety date after going to the U2 concert, because I was like, I'm not going to U2 concert sober. And you guys told me I could. And I'm like, I don't know what planet you're from, but I am not going to the U2 concert sober. And I went, and oh man, that was a lesson in how much I like to indulge in alcohol. And because I hadn't drank for a week or two at that point, and then I did. And so anyways, I established my sobriety date soon after the U2, right, the day after the U2 concert. And then 44 days later, I drank again. And that too was a big lesson for me, because I really could see in time, not right away, but I could see in time, I could look back and see how that day my feelings of inadequacy had really built up to working for a friend in the same profession and seeing how good her work was, and beating myself up about mine, and having spent the weekend with my brother, and he's just doing so much better than me. So a lot of just those feelings of just not living up to what I felt like, I don't know, just feelings of inadequacy. I mean, a lot of people in the stories in the back of the big book talk about it, and I can really relate to that. I thought I would clean up my act going to, and that didn't happen. I thought I'd do it when I went away to college, and immediately got in with, I was planted as a freshman into this group of sophomores, and they taught me that they knew the ropes on how to party, and we partied. A lot of them did the 5-year plan. So by the time I was a senior, they were their second year as seniors. So we spent 4 years together partying our asses off. I mean, just to the extremes. And when I left there, I found myself within a decade, I could really look back and go, oh my God, like my girlfriends aren't with me anymore, and we're not taking care of each other. And I'm out doing the same insane things with, where I'm not cognizant. And then I'm like, nobody's got my back. Nobody's got my back. And so I thought that was a problem, right? Like I just needed people that had my back, like my girlfriends did. I didn't see the substance abuse and the alcohol as being the problem. So soon, in college, I drank, and then I moved after college, and I thought maybe I'd clean up my act when I moved across the country, and I didn't. The drugs and alcohol found me again. Imagine that. I lived alone when I lived in Denver, and I did a really nice, solid first step, and I continue to work the first step a lot. But I'm really grateful for in the 12 and 12. It does mention, we look back at our history of our drinking history, and that's what I did with my first sponsor. I looked at my drinking history, I wrote it down, I read it to her, and I spent a lot of time really reflecting back on things like living in Denver. And 2 years of just, buying, and that was when crafty beer would just come out. So super strong beer. And I was drinking a 6-pack a night, smoking cigarettes and passing out, and getting up in the morning and going to work, and then coming home, after having drank with my colleague and then, other things, and then coming home with my 6-pack, and just over and over a cycle of just being really alone in this tiny apartment and thinking I was really just making it. And I was about 24 at that point. But then I eventually moved again, and there's somebody in the back of the book that talks about, and then I met a guy, and that story, and then I met a guy, like I can totally, and then I met a guy, I was like, moved again, and ended up in Seattle, and part of my profession, I'm a visual person, and I got into motorcycles because they're really neat visually, and then I thought, I'm going to start to ride one of those things. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to drink as much if I learn how to ride a motorcycle. That'll help me curtail my drinking. Guess what? It did. And eventually, I started riding in 99. So in 2008, I was in a really bad motorcycle accident. And the actual physical element of the accident, I got T-boned by a kid who ran a stop sign. So that part wasn't my fault. But I wouldn't have been doing what I was doing if it weren't, for my story, right? So 3 years later, I was doing the same stuff again on the motorcycle, and just really looked at that, and I thought, one night riding home, I know I prayed, and I just, help me. But before that, okay, so that's 2010, and that was in like May of 2011, I meant. But the year prior, in 2010, I had gone to a college reunion, and there was somebody at that reunion, and there were about 30 of us, and we are all, drinking, and we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and it was really fun. And people were like, "Hey, have you seen Mike yet? Mike's sober." And I'm like, "Mike's sober?" I usually use his last name, but I won't. I was like, "He's sober?" Like, and then and this rumor's going around this room of 30 of us. And we're all drinking. Like, wow, what is that? Why did he get sober? And then he walks in, and he's in the doorway, and I'll just never forget. And he said, "Ooh," like this angel, like he's glowing, his eyes are bright, and I'm like, "Whoa." And so the next morning, I ended up on the bus next to him, and it's 10 a.m. and we're heading onto campus for the football game, tailgating, and I've got a drink in my hand, and I'm already drunk, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, "What's that sober thing all about?" Because I was genuinely curious. I really was. My heart wanted to know, but it wasn't, and that was October of 2010, and it wasn't until I was praying on my motorcycle riding home in May of 2011 that I know I prayed, right? And I woke up the next morning, and I texted him, and he had already had a plan to come out to Seattle from the East Coast, and so we were going to hook up while he was here, and but what it was just like, so we had been in touch. It hadn't been since October since I talked to him, but I don't know what gave me. I mean, I know it was like my higher power guiding me to just pick up that phone and text him, and I did. I texted him and I said, "How'd you get sober?" And he texted right back. Actually, I had to text him twice. So talk about willingness, right? Like, I don't know where that willingness came. The first text didn't go through. I texted it again, and then he said, "I'll call you tonight if you want to talk." But the long and short of it is AA saved my life. And so I was like, okay. He said, "I'll take you to a meeting when I'm coming out there," and that was a couple weeks away. So I proceeded to drink like I was never going to drink again. And over the next couple of weeks, even though I told myself, "Well, no, I'll curtail, I'll back off, I won't drink until he gets here, and then I'll be kind of sober by the time he gets here." When he got here, I was so angry, and so that I have a few more minutes. I'll never forget. Again, part of my first step is my reaction to him saying, "Hey, let's go get a cup of coffee," when we're hiking around Pike Place Market. I'm like, "You guys all just want to drink coffee." It just, the anger that had built up in me. But again, you guys taught me that idea that I was saying goodbye to something, to this crutch, this tool, this best friend that had really helped me get through a lot of my life. I don't know if you can tell I'm a little teary-eyed. I just get so passionate about this program. I just want to say it too has saved my life. I love Alcoholics Anonymous now. I didn't want to be here when I first got here, and now I don't ever want to leave. I don't know why I'm all crying, because it's just so cool. Like, we are part of what I've heard is called like the largest spiritual movement in the world. I totally believe that. I think it's the coolest thing, and I think it's also really scary, because I also do believe that it's alive and well inside of me, but you feed the wolf, right? You feed the dog, or feed the side of you that you want to stay healthy. So I do that now on a regular basis by staying in touch with you guys. I got some homies here that I love very much. And I can't do it without my home group. I couldn't do it without my sponsor, with guidance through the steps from several women, and being able to take other women through the steps. It's miracle stuff, man. I've actually had 2 women that really were able to latch onto this program. So to watch that light come on, and but also in other friends just through the program, watching the light come on, and us all living just a better life, a happier life, right? Like, it's not necessarily better. Like, there's ups and downs. Life keeps lifing. I heard that one recently, and I like that, because it does, and life can be hard, but it's so much better sober. Like, I am just so grateful. And I lean on gratitude on a daily basis, and that helps me change my attitude when I get negative, and I can tend to be frustrated with the world, and that can bring me down. So in order to not let that bring me down, because that would eventually lead to something where I need relief other than the relief that I get relief from prayer, meditation, and through staying in touch with you guys and working a program. And I don't want to get relief. I don't want to let my attitude get so bad that I need to find relief elsewhere. I've also heard that AA can stand for attitude adjustment. So I really like that too. And with that, I am going to thank Nancy for asking me to join you here. And that's it for me.
Thank you.